to the show. This is The Force Always. My name is Diz, aka David Zammit. Let's get on with the show. The news, the views, the reviews, and interviews. Let me just take a sip of that. Anyway, so the news today is apparently there is a new Mandalorian and Grogu poster. I can't confirm it is actually the new Mandalorian and Grogu poster. Simply because it would appear on StarWars.com and it seems to be not there. This particular poster seems to be the new poster, which is pretty much so the Mandalorian's helmet in a really wide, close-up shot with Grogu right next to him. Very, it's a nice-looking poster, I'll tell you that. It's beautiful. It's like simplicity. It's great. Not much creativity there, but, one of your classic, iconic sort of posters. But I don't know if it is actually the poster. I'm not doubting it. I just cannot confirm it. That's making news at the moment. And also, there is a new variant of the Mandalorian Grogu trailer online, which has more footage that has been seen at the Japan Star Wars celebration. Just to give you an idea, one of the highlights to the footage that we saw at Japan Star Wars celebration, the special Mandalorian and Grogu panel, which I was actually there, front and center, was amazing, was when Grogu force squashes or destroys a mouse droid. It's pretty good, pretty funny. Sort of, maybe a one-time laugh and maybe a second, but you see it a third time where you know what's going to happen. But it's still funny. Anyway, so that is also online. And so to more news, well, really that leads me to say, with Starfighter, no news is good news. And that's the news with Starfighter. There's no actual movement yet, not even really in the Mandalorian Grogu space. We have a trailer that is, with extra footage in it that was seen at, Star Wars Celebration Japan, but it's not really a new trailer. It's sort of a rehashed one, most of it. And the poster, well, that's yet to be absolutely confirmed. It is good, but it's yet to be confirmed. So there's no news with Starfighter, and there's no real other news on at the moment. Anyway, let me get now into views. Views is my story idea where I say to you once again, and I'll always say I accept the story for Star Wars for what it is. It's great. Start to finish, it's great. There's, ups and downs, goods and bads, stuff like that. But the story of the canon Star Wars is great. Even the extended universe or whatever you want to call it, there's some great stories, like great fan films as well. But my story idea is going to reflect on again Mandalorian and Grogu, where I think, even though the story's been written, it's in the editing process, I would love just again to explore more about the Grogu species, the planet, extending, hopefully, wishingly, to meeting or seeing Yoda in this. This will be absolute greatness. I've actually said that it would be great to see Luke Skywalker again appear in this Mandalorian Grogu. He has appeared. In fact, he's appeared in the most emotional comebacks for Luke Skywalker, I'd say, ever in his history. And that was the end of season 2 of The Mandalorian. Not in Grogu, because it's just called The Mandalorian. And I would love just really to see Luke Skywalker, but I'd love really need to see the Grogu species, the Yoda species, come to fruition their planet and just get into that. And again, my idea is protecting their planet from some sort of outside bad force, so to speak. That would be great. Just having the whole Grogu family, species, the planet where they're from, come to fruition, and then being under threat by some sort of evil sort of predator of some sort, maybe a guy in a blue face, could be Thrawn. Technically the Emperor's around. Technically, I don't think he's going to appear in this one from the backlash, especially from Rise of Skywalker episode 9. But, I just like to see some, something be at stake, and that would just drive the film being at stake, and it would be, Grogu's planet, the Yoda planet, and Grogu himself. Be great. Anyway, so that's my story idea, just to sort of extend on something I've just told you before, but really getting in the understanding of the whole species of the little green guys. Is essentially my story idea, is what I'd like to have more story on. And I'd love to create it. It's not for me to create, but I'm just saying that that's what I do. Anyway, so let's get into reviews. Reviews is just some things that I have in this room. It may look like I'm hoarding things, and it's not hoarding things. It's actually all collectible stuff. I mean, this thing over here, that's a scarf. That's a Maltese football club. Just to let you know, it's a Maltese football club. The club I follow, Salima Blues. But don't worry about that. It's not Star Wars. Let's get into whatever I'm promoting for Star Wars in collectibles. Now, this is a bottle of water. What is so good about this bottle of water? Well, this bottle of water is the collectible bottle of water that you get at Galaxy's Edge, whether you're in Orlando or even in California, whether they still sell them as this brand or not, but it's sort of designed like, a very futuristic sort of logo design. That is the official water that you get in Star Wars Galaxy Edge. Now, this one I'm going to give about a 7 out of 10. I don't think the actual bottle is all exciting. It's just a bottle. But just the packaging, that logo, which way you have it, I don't know, is pretty exciting. So 7 out of 10. This definitely will not ferment over time. But I've not opened it deliberately because it's what us Star Wars fans do. We just keep things forever. If we can seal them and keep them sealed, added bonus. Anyway, that's my review. It's a water from Galaxy's Edge. I did go to the California one. Let me tell you, it was fun. It was great. So let's now get into interviews. Now, interviews will also include an opinion that I have. So I'll interview myself and then get into the questions. So this particular episode is called Star Wars Could Get Cancelled. And what I'm alluding to that is that I watch Star Wars, I hear Star Wars, I read Star Wars continuously. I haven't been really watching the actual episodic or even TV series as much, but it's still embedded in me. I really want to catch up on a bit of Ahsoka because I know it's coming up, but that's another thing. But I just think Star Wars could get cancelled. Look, I'll tell you this. The upheaval with the hardcore Star Wars fans and just Star Wars fans that are especially online, especially on YouTube, everything gets just scrutinized badly because the story is not fitting how the story should go to them. Whether they are a Lucas supporter, whether they are a sequel supporter, whether they are a prequel supporter, an originals supporter, you know what? It's just at the point where I don't know how Disney or Lucasfilm haven't broken and said, look, we're just going to cancel everything. It seems that everyone is not on the same page. It's causing more negativity, sales are declining. We're just going to seal it up and not open it for decades. To me, the excitement of Star Wars is, if there's any excitement, is the actual releasing of Star Wars a bit more repetitively and guaranteed at the moment. Back in the 80s when Return of the Jedi finished, we thought that was it. There's no more story to say. And then the special editions came out and entirely it promoted that they're going to go and create more Star Wars films back in time. But we thought, man, that's about a 15-year drought. We thought, that's great. And then we got to the Revenge of the Sith and, all things were sealed. But then it was sold. It was sold and we'd say, oh my God, it's going to be, new again. We're going to see more Star Wars. Not just more, a whole lot more. And for a while there, we got a whole lot more. To be honest, averagely, I thought they were all pretty good. It still had sort of the elements. It had, a bit of, ups and downs, more downs than ups, but it was still Star Wars. It was still exciting. But I think, we've all got to be careful. And if Disney or Lucasfilm decides to just cancel it and either bottle it up or completely cancel it until they sell it. And I don't think Star Wars is going to sell for the amount of money that they purchase at the moment, even though they've got, money receipts to sort of prove that it could still, make a lot of money. But there's not many people in the world that's going to pay upward of $4 billion, which it got sold to Disney from Lucas, George Lucas, that is. I personally just want to see Star Wars get created. I just think we just got to hold our hats, accept the story for what it is, have our little opinions, whether it's Lucas, authenticated, or if it's just something original, or if it's an emotional roller coaster of a movie or TV series, great. It's Star Wars. That's it. At the end of the day, it's Star Wars. I hate to say this, but let's make Star Wars great again. Michael would love that. He'll probably wear a hat. And I'm not even a Trump or non-Trump supporter. I'm neutral. I'm from Australia, not America. Just to let you know. Speaking of Michael, he's from Werribee South and he just loves questions. Let's get into his question. That was my opinion, just to give you, an interview on myself. Anyway, Michael from Werribee South, he loves asking me the questions he asks. Let me tell you, there's some questions I cannot even ask on this channel because, they're quite personal. But anyway, he asks, what did Luke learn from the first Jedi texts? Well, he read them. He probably studied up on them and he just learned what was in them. There was never really extensive, information on this other than what was left in the movies. He was in possession of them, but he didn't realize they weren't burnt when he burnt the temple thing that he had. He thought they had perished, but Rey had taken them and saved them. The text technically sort of detail history and points of teaching, but mainly history of Jedi, as far as I know. So what did he learn? Well, he just learned what was in the text. They've never been actually released the text to the public, so we don't know what's in them. There'll be a really interesting book to release. That would be a very good product idea. Every page, every word, every letter, that would be fantastic. Anyway, Michael from Werribee South, once again. Werribee South is a part of Melbourne, Australia. It's the other side of the bridge, which is, the other side of the train tracks. Figure that out. What was his... Okay, Michael was asking, why was his personality so different in the sequel trilogy? Well, that's creative minds, at work. Disney owned it. J.J. Abrams directed the first film. and then Ryan Johnson the second, JJ went on the third. There was just variations or, a personality change to fit in with where the story was headed. It was sort of actually simulating Obi-Wan Kenobi becoming a bit of a hermit in the original trilogy. You've got to understand, again, Star Wars is a recycle storyline. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. They all have the same rough story in a different way. It's sort of like it sort of shows the life of Star Wars, the life of life. Life is, a recycling, repetitive thing. You're born, you live, you die. Star Wars is episode 1, 2, and 3. 4, 5, and 6. And so really, when it came to 7, 8, and 9, it was Luke's turn to be a bit of a hermit. Maybe I would have chosen him to be a bit more heroic in certain scenes, as I've said. In The Force Awakens, I think Luke should have been the one that got the lightsaber from the snow and assisted Rey at that time in fighting Kylo Ren. It's just a story idea. But I accept the story for what it is now, because Rey was the one that picked it up and, is strong with the Force, as we know. Anyway, so his personality was pretty much just a creative decision on the directors and writers at that time, pretty much. And sort of following the ideals of Star Wars evolution, which is, born, live, die, 1, 2, 3. If you can understand that. So the next question, how did Maz Kanata get Anakin's lightsaber? Well, it was, Maz Kanata was an orange type of alien that we first met in episode 7, Force Awakens. She had this lightsaber inside of a little box, along with, I think, with the other things in there. And Rey found it, and basically she bought it on the black market from some, I think it's Ognaughts, which were the people in Empire Strikes Back, in the, I think it was the Death Star at that time. It was no, it wasn't a Death Star. It was a starship, I think. Cloud City. It was in Cloud City. My goodness, it was in Cloud City. There's Ognaughts. There's like sort of pig-looking slave type, maintenance people dealing with metals and lava and stuff like that. I suppose lava, hot metal, and one of them, I think, found it, and sold it on the black market. And ended up in Maz Kanata's hands, which was a big part of episode 7, The Force Awakens. To answer that question, the next question is, what was the deal with Rey's Force abilities? Well, that's more of a questionable thing for a lot of Star Wars fans. A lot of Star Wars fans didn't understand why she was so powerful, and then didn't really understand that her granddad was the Emperor. Didn't accept it so well. Not all Star Wars fans, just part of them. And so, it does make, for me, that was the area of the story that made sense. Even though the Emperor was rushed in episode 9 to save the ideas of a storyline and stuff like that. But I still think it makes sense, even if the Emperor was rushed in with episode 9. I'm one of the few that would say that. But he was so powerful. He manipulated so many things in the universe, not a planet, the universe. Not a village, not a planet, the universe. So the granddaughter, which was Rey, inherited a lot of these abilities. So that was the, what was the deal? That was the deal for Rey's Force abilities. How did Smoke rise to power? That's Michael from Wherever's House. Next question. Technically, Snoke was a clone, was a made-up character in a way from the Emperor, and was used as a puppet to sort of lead the First Order, which was the next range of stormtroopers, and to manipulate Kylo Ren or Ben Solo becoming Kylo Ren, or not becoming, just to manipulate Ben Solo. So Snoke was a puppet to really, as a part of the manipulation from Emperor Palpatine from a very far in a planet called Escargot. I think it's called Escargot. It was hidden away and people didn't know he was still alive. That was so incredibly hidden, amazingly to some people, but hated by a lot of people. But anyway, Snoke raised to power because of Emperor Palpatine's handiwork as a puppeteer. So the last question I've got here, I think, it is the last question. Why did Luke Skywalker go into exile? So this is from Michael from Webby South again. He went into exile because he felt that his existence was causing trouble to the universe. So he decided to hide himself away from everybody so he wouldn't cause any grief anymore. And that was after sort of training some Padawan or some Jedi sensitive people, and then then Ben Solo sort of defecting, and it was just causing him grief. He said, "No, that's it. I'm out. See you later. Goodbye." He was just trying to protect the universe, from the great of bad with the great of good, in trying to, just be exiled. Not hide, but exiled. He learned that from Obi-Wan. He learned that from Yoda. So he sort of knew what to do. Anyway, that is the answer to Michael's many questions. And that is the show for this time around. Please subscribe to the channel if you can. It'd be great. But if you don't, I understand. Like the episode. Press notification bell. You should be able to get a notification that I've just put up an episode. I'm doing about 3 a week at the moment. And until next time, my friends, keep rocking.